and release anything that isn't meant for you. All right, Capricorn, let's get into your reading. So the message coming in strong today is this, and it landed before I touched the cards. This person is terrified right now. And the reason behind that terror is purely love itself. They did not sign up for what hit them, and the intensity rattled them to absolute pieces. Love was never supposed to land like this, and yet it crashed through without a single warning. The fear in their chest is not about danger. It is about how deeply they actually fell. They cannot process how fast it happened, and that speed alone makes them want to run away. Everything they feel contradicts every rule they set for themselves, and that contradiction haunts them daily. They built a life around emotional safety, and you walked straight through every barrier without even knocking. Come in close, because the first card is 10 of Cups, and it confirms why this scares them. 10 of Cups never appears unless the connection carries real, lasting potential, and that potential terrifies them. This card holds the blueprint of a future, and they see it every time they close their eyes. What frightens them most is that this feels permanent, not temporary or passing, but rooted and unshakable. They looked at you and saw a life they never believed they deserved, and that vision shook them. Happiness on that level feels foreign to them, and receiving it requires a surrender they never practiced. Love and loss are wired together in their mind, and every beautiful moment feels like a ticking countdown. This is not infatuation. 10 of Cups confirms it is the real thing, and their body knows it. Their nervous system registered you as home before their brain caught up, and that gap created panic. They oscillate between pulling you closer and wanting to disappear before you see too much of them. Quiet mornings with you already live in their imagination, and those visions came completely uninvited to them. Instead of bringing peace, those pictures triggered a fear response, something primal buried deep in their bones. Let us go deeper, because Knight of Cups reversed cuts right into the core of their paralysis. Knight of Cups reversed tells me their courage collapsed the moment they realized how real this was. They had the words ready and the feelings mapped out. Then fear slammed that entire door shut. This card says they retreated emotionally right at the edge of honesty, pulling back when it mattered. A pattern lives inside them of almost confessing, then swallowing every word at the very last second. They rehearse vulnerability in private, but perform distance in public. And that split tears them apart slowly. Their fear disguises itself as indifference, and they wear that mask well enough to fool everyone around. Reversed night energy means the romantic gesture stays locked in imagination, never reaching daylight or your ears. The bravest version of them exists behind closed doors, and in those moments, they ache to reach you. They wrote messages they deleted, started conversations they abandoned, and planned confessions they sabotaged every time. Let us see what else sits beneath this, because the tower rounds out this section with serious impact. Loving you dismantled their entire emotional framework, and the tower confirms nothing fits the way it used to. Before you, they had total control over who entered their life, and that control defined their identity. You destroyed that system without even trying, and the rubble of what they built still surrounds them. They stand in the aftermath of an internal collapse, and rebuilding feels impossible while you occupy them. Tower energy means the old version of them cannot survive this love, and the new version is unready. They are caught between who they were and who loving you demands, and that space is pure agony. Paired with 10 of Cups, the Tower tells me their fear is not about you, but about transformation. Loving you requires them to become braver than they have ever been, and that requirement fuels their panic. That is the message confirmed. This person is genuinely scared because they fell in love with you. Okay, let us dive into your side of this because your energy speaks volumes on its own. A heaviness wraps itself around your ribs lately, and you barely talk about what sits there. A tiredness lives in you that sleep cannot fix, and it has been lingering for quite a while. Your mind races while your body begs for stillness, and that internal war drains you by morning. You feel everything at a frequency most never access, and lately that gift became your burden. Guarding yourself became second nature long ago, and now you struggle to separate walls from skin. Emotional armor fused with your identity somewhere along the way, and removing it feels like losing yourself. The first card for your energy is the Hermit, and he mirrors exactly where you stand right now. The Hermit says you pulled away from noise deliberately, choosing solitude over vulnerability without naming it. Isolation became your version of self-care, and you convinced yourself distance was the safest healing. You stopped letting people close enough to spot the cracks, and that felt wise, but also suffocating. The Hermit confirms you carry a lantern that illuminates everyone else, but rarely shines inward on you. You offer clarity to the world around you, and yet your own emotional landscape stays foggy. Solitude served you for a season, but that season ended, and you kept choosing it out of habit. Part of you enjoys the control isolation brings, and another part starves for warmth you deny yourself. Your inner world craves connection desperately, but survival instincts keep screaming that connection costs too much. Underneath composure lives a hunger to be held without conditions, and that hunger embarrasses you somehow. You treat your own needs like inconveniences, and that pattern ran so long you forgot it started. Dimming your own light was deliberate, and the hermit says you feared that shining attracted wrong attention. Visibility became dangerous in your mind, and hiding became the only strategy that ever felt reliable to you. Let us see what surfaces next, because Seven of Cups pulls the next layer wide open here. Seven of Cups says your mind overflows with possibilities you never act on, and that overflow paralyzes. You imagine dozens of outcomes before breakfast, and each feels equally real and equally unlikely at once. Daydreams consume you more than you admit, and certain visions carry emotional weight that startles you deeply. Getting lost inside your own imagination is a pattern, building futures that your fear refuses to enter. The gap between what you envision and what you allow yourself to receive has become almost unbearable. You see the life you want with brutal clarity, and then sabotage the path toward it instinctively. Fantasy became your refuge, according to this card, because in fantasy, nothing can reject or abandon you. Your mind creates beautiful illusions of safety, and stepping outside them feels like walking into open fire. Choosing feels impossible because every option carries risk, and your tolerance for risk shrank to nothing lately. Then we have Two of Swords, and it sits at the exact center of where you are emotionally. Two of Swords says you stand blindfolded at a crossroads, holding two truths that directly contradict. One truth demands protection at all costs, and the other demands openness before it is too late entirely. You cannot pick a direction because both paths carry loss, and indecision weighs on you every day. Your heart already chose, but Two of Swords says your mind refuses to honor that choice yet. The blindfold is not ignorance. It is deliberate refusal to see what you already know is true. You block your own sight because seeing clearly means acting, and acting means risking everything you protected. Paired with the Hermit, Two of Swords confirms isolation became your blindfold, and indecision your shield. You are not lost at all. You are frozen in a knowing that demands total honesty from you. That is your energy today, caught between the safety of silence and the ache of everything unsaid. Now, let us step into their inner world, because what lives inside them right now is staggering. Their mind became a prison they built with their own hands, and they lost the key long ago. Nobody around them suspects the depth of what is happening because they've perfected the art of hiding. Every morning begins with a performance they rehearsed so many times, it no longer feels like acting. Their emotional landscape shifted beneath them without permission, and they are still adjusting to the new terrain. Fear runs their decisions now, and that fear has a very specific origin they refuse to examine closely. Love entered a space they sealed off years ago, and the breach left them completely disoriented inside. The first card for their side is Three of Swords reversed, and it exposes old wounds resurfacing fast. Heartbreak they believed was healed cracked open, and Three of Swords reversed says it caught them off guard. Past rejection carved a belief into them that love always ends in devastation, and that belief still governs. They carry grief from a previous chapter that never received closure, and it poisons their present entirely. This card confirms they see new love through the lens of old pain, and that distortion terrifies them. Healing was never completed. It was abandoned midway and buried under layers of forced composure and distance. The wound reopened because this connection reached a familiar depth, and their body recognized it from before. Their heart identified something real, and that recognition triggered every scar tissue memory stored in their chest. They associate depth with danger automatically, and unlearning that pattern feels like reprogramming their entire nervous system. Old betrayal whispers in their ear at night, telling them that trust is just a setup for pain. They want to believe this time is different, but their survival wiring screams louder than any hopeful thought. Three of Swords reversed confirms they mourn what they almost had before, and that mourning bleeds into today. Let us go deeper, because the Hanged Man arrives next, and it reveals something critical about their motives. The Hanged Man says they suspended themselves in emotional limbo deliberately, choosing paralysis over the risk of action. Stillness became their strategy, and they convinced themselves that waiting was wisdom instead of fear wearing a mask. They hang upside down emotionally, seeing the world from a perspective nobody else understands or even notices. Sacrificing happiness to maintain an illusion of safety became their default, and this card says it barely holds. Surrender is what their soul craves, but their mind interprets surrender as defeat and refuses it completely. They know movement is required, and yet every fiber of them resists because movement means vulnerability exposed. The Hanged Man tells me they reframed their paralysis as patience, but underneath that patience lives pure terror. They stall because choosing means losing the backup plan, and having no backup plan makes them physically sick. Internally, they bargain with time constantly, believing that eventually the fear will shrink on its own. Then we have Six of Wands reversed, and it strips away the final layer of what drives them. Six of Wands reversed says they carry a deep fear of being celebrated, because visibility brings judgment. Loving openly requires a confidence they do not possess, and admitting that lack of confidence shames them. Their self-worth took damage long before this began, and the cracks run deeper than anyone sees. Six of Wands reversed confirms they do not believe they deserve reciprocated love, and that belief anchors them. They look at what is offered and hear a voice inside, saying they will only ruin it eventually. Unworthiness is the engine beneath their hesitation, and every fearful decision traces back to that wound. Paired together, these cards tell me old heartbreak planted seeds of unworthiness that never got pulled. Those seeds grew roots so deep they became invisible, and now they mistake self-sabotage for rational caution. That is their inner world, a tangled knot of old pain and new love fighting for one space. Okay, let us get into the movement because the cards are showing action that cannot be denied here. The stillness that surrounded this connection is cracking, and what pushes through those cracks is undeniable. A shift already began behind closed doors, and neither side fully grasps how close the tipping point sits. Resistance held everything in place for months, but the structure keeping things frozen has started to buckle. Motion enters from a direction nobody anticipated, and that element of surprise is what finally breaks the cycle. The waiting period reaches its natural expiration, and what replaces it carries real, tangible weight this time. Circumstances will align in a way that makes avoidance nearly impossible, and that alignment is already forming. The first card for this section is Strength, and it speaks directly to the kind of movement arriving. Strength says the action coming is not aggressive or loud. It arrives with a quiet, determined force instead. This card confirms the breakthrough happens through patience meeting courage, not through dramatic confrontation or pressure. Strength tells me the braver side makes a move first, and that move is rooted in calm certainty. A conversation that has been avoided for months finally gets initiated, and it catches both sides off guard. The initiation will not feel rehearsed or polished. It will stumble out, raw and imperfect, and completely real. Strength confirms the approach comes from a place of quiet resolve, not desperation or anxiety or need. The person stepping forward does so because staying still became more painful than risking everything openly. That pivot from paralysis to action happens fast, and once it begins, there is no pulling it back. A text or call surfaces, written and deleted dozens of times before it finally gets sent out. The wording will feel casual on purpose, designed to test the temperature before any real depth gets shared. Beneath that casual surface, Strength says a deliberate, calculated step moves towards something they cannot ignore. Expect the unexpected with the timing, because this reach does not arrive when either side is prepared. It lands during an ordinary moment, and the ordinariness of that moment makes the impact hit even harder. The first exchange opens a door neither side wants to close, and that door stays wide open. Then we have Eight of Wands, and this card brings a speed of movement that changes everything instantly. Eight of Wands says once contact is established, the pace of communication accelerates beyond what either side expected. Messages fly back and forth rapidly, and each one peels back another layer of what has been suppressed. Multiple points of contact happen in quick succession, and this card confirms it is not one isolated reach. Phone calls replace texts, voice notes replace silence, and the connection rebuilds itself at a pace that stuns. Plans materialize quickly after the initial contact, and those plans involve reducing the physical distance between both. Eight of Wands energy means delays dissolve overnight, and barriers that seemed permanent suddenly lose all their power. Travel or a meeting gets arranged faster than logic would suggest, because the momentum behind this demands it. Schedules shift to accommodate what has been ignored, and both sides rearrange priorities without needing to be asked. Paired with Strength, Eight of Wands confirms the movement starts quiet, but escalates into something rapid and unstoppable. The slow burn flips into wildfire, and once that fire catches, there is no containing what follows next. Decisions that took months of overthinking get made in a single afternoon because clarity replaces confusion entirely. External circumstances also cooperate in unexpected ways, clearing a path that seemed blocked just days before now. No room exists for stalling anymore because the energy propelling this forward is stronger than any resistance. The action confirmed is clear. Real contact arrives, and it triggers a chain of rapid steps forward. That is the movement ahead, a quiet, brave reach that ignites into a pace neither side can slow. So let us go ahead and get into it because this is where their deepest secrets surface. Confessions live inside this person like trapped smoke, and they press against every wall built around them. Their silence holds more weight than any words they ever spoke, and they feel that weight constantly. What they suppress could fill entire rooms, and the pressure of containing it physically exhausts them now. Every swallowed truth left a bruise they cannot see, but they carry the soreness in their chest daily. The things they hide are not small or passing. They are the kind that would rewrite everything. Holding this much inside turned their body into a vault, and the lock is starting to give way. The dam they built around their truth weakens each day, and they feel the first fractures spreading now. The first card is the Magician reversed, and it reveals the confession they guard most carefully inside. Magician reversed says they feel powerless before what they feel, and that powerlessness deeply shames them. Their deepest hidden truth is this: love stripped away every illusion of control they ever relied on. You made them feel something they cannot manufacture or replicate, and they confess that only to themselves. Before you, they could steer their emotions with precision, and now that steering wheel is completely gone. Secretly, they resent how much influence you hold over their internal state, and that resentment hides tenderness. A single memory of you can undo hours of composure, and they confess that truth through clenched teeth. You became the variable they cannot solve, and not solving it tortures them behind every calm expression. Pretending they moved on was the greatest performance of their life, and they confess it was all theater. Every casual interaction masked a desperation underneath, and that desperation grew teeth the longer silence continued. Privately, they whisper your name into empty rooms, testing how it sounds when nobody is around to hear. They imagine confessing everything in a single unbroken sentence, watching your face absorb each word one by one. The Magician reversed tells me they rehearsed that confession so many times, it became a prayer inside them. Their hidden wish is to stop performing strength and simply collapse into the raw truth of what exists. Let us see what surfaces next, because Nine of Cups goes even deeper into what they carry alone. Their secret desire centers on a vision of total fulfillment, and that vision only includes you in it. They fantasize about a life where pretending ended and honesty replaced every mask they ever put on. The confession buried deepest is that they already chose you internally, and that private choice terrifies them. Nine of Cups reveals a longing for domestic intimacy, ordinary mornings, and shared silence, and belonging fully. Being claimed by you publicly is a craving that contradicts every independent persona they carefully constructed. Their desire is not purely romantic, it is existential, and they ache to be fully known by you. Your face is the only one inside their vision of peace, and they confess that every night. Waking beside you plays on an endless loop in their mind, and Nine of Cups confirms that vision. Nobody else ever made them feel safe enough to imagine forever, and that admission sits heavy on them. Forever crosses their mind attached to your name, and they never let that word mean anything before. You redefined what they believed was possible, and they confess internally that nothing can undo that shift. Life as they imagined it before you feels colorless, and they cannot go back to wanting it now. Paired together, these cards reveal a full internal surrender, performed while resistance still plays on the outside. Every wall still standing is theater, and behind that theater lives a heart that already belongs to you. In the silence of their own mind, they confess that fighting this connection was the biggest lie told. What they hide are not doubts, they are declarations of love, disguised as silence and wrapped in fear. That is what lives beneath it all. A surrender so complete, it rewrote them entirely. Okay, let us look at what unfolds next, because the near future carries a shift worth seeing. The first card ahead is the World, and it signals a cycle completing that stayed open too long. Closure arrives not through endings, but through a breakthrough that finally connects all the scattered pieces. What felt fragmented begins to make sense, and both sides recognize why this journey was truly necessary. The World confirms a full circle moment approaches, where fear loses its grip and truth steps into daylight. Resolution arrives as a deep exhale that both of you have been holding in, quiet but unmistakable. The completion promised here is not perfection, it is acceptance of what already exists between you both. Then we have Page of Swords, and it brings a spark of fresh communication into the near future. Fresh words enter this connection soon, words that carry honesty, even if they arrive wrapped in nervousness. A message surfaces that feels different from anything exchanged before, because vulnerability leads this time around. Curiosity replaces defensiveness, and both sides begin asking real questions instead of building assumptions apart. The communication ahead feels tentative at first, but its sincerity cuts through every wall still standing. Paired with the World, this card tells me the conversation ahead closes one chapter and opens another. Let me share the advice I need you to carry, because it matters more than you realize. Do not shrink yourself to make their fear comfortable, because your fullness is what drew them in. Stand firm in your own value, and let their courage catch up to what your presence already demands. You owe nobody a smaller version of yourself, and the right connection will rise to meet you. When honesty arrives at your door, receive it without punishing the delay that came before it appeared. Grace does not mean forgetting what you endured. It means choosing forward motion over the weight of resentment. Protect your peace fiercely, but do not confuse protecting it with permanently closing your heart off. Remaining open after everything taught you to close is the bravest act, and you are capable. Now, bringing this back to the message, because every card pointed directly to its truth today. The message was this: this person is scared to their core because they genuinely fell in love. That truth echoed through all 6 parts, and the cards validated it without a single contradiction. From the first card to the last, every piece confirmed what you already sensed deep inside yourself. Let me walk through each card, because together they painted an undeniable and complete picture today. 10 of Cups revealed lasting potential, and Knight of Cups reversed exposed their collapsed emotional courage. The Tower confirmed love dismantled their framework, and the Hermit showed you retreating into protective solitude. 7 of Cups exposed your overflowing, unlived possibilities, and 2 of Swords showed your paralyzed crossroads. 3 of Swords reversed surfaced old wounds, and the Hanged Man revealed their deliberate emotional suspension. 6 of Wands reversed uncovered unworthiness, and Strength confirmed the breakthrough arrives through quiet courage. 8 of Wands brought rapid acceleration, and the Magician reversed exposed their confession of total powerlessness. 9 of Cups revealed their secret fulfillment vision, and the World confirmed a completing cycle ahead. Page of Swords closed it with fresh, vulnerable honesty, bringing communication where only silence lived before. 16 cards arrived today, and every one reinforced the truth that this love is real and mutual. Their fear is not rejection. It is proof of how deeply you reached into their very core. Everything you felt was valid. Everything you sensed was accurate, and your intuition served you perfectly. Hold on to that knowing, because it belongs to you,